Okay, so welcome everybody. My name is Jalinda Lee and I am the founder and chair of Elevate Her Australia. And we started Elevate Her Australia to really inspire and empower and encourage more women to reach up and realise their leadership aspirations or their aspirations to lead and to drive change across their companies that they're involved in, their workplaces, their communities, and also across the country. So we were very much in, in the mode of helping more women to be in those leadership positions, and particularly, which our mission is to increase the number of women at these decision-making tables. So that's what it's all about. So Elevate Her Australia's code is, and it's interesting because this is what we're doing together today with Licia. Our code is together. Together we are stronger. Together we can drive change, and together we will make a bigger difference. And so with that, I really wanted to invite Licia along today. So welcome, Licia Heath.
Thank you.
Licia is CEO for Women for Election. Licia, do you use the word Australia on the end of it at the moment? It was originally Women
Not anymore.
Australia, no. And that just rolls off my tongue. So if I make a mistake, you are wide, so
I answer to both.
Excellent. Good. So Women for Election, check out their website. I love their website. It's colourful. It's easy to find stuff. And it's a really good tool to have a look at what they're rolling out, and more on that shortly. So their mission, and she may share this with us, but I want to connect the two missions that we have, because their mission is also to inspire more women and to equip them and to sustain them to successfully stand for and thrive once they get into public office in Australia. So it's really, how would I say, in terms of marketing, we call it narrow and deep. It's really specifically about getting more women elected into government office positions and at those decision-making tables. So we actually look at this as our two organisations have really great synergies, and that's why I wanted to make sure that Elevate Her Australia was supporting what Women for Election is about to do and is already doing, which is fantastic. And we've done this for a while. In fact, me personally, I actually did the Equip program that Women for Election did. And I think it was way back in 2020, maybe 2021. And I did it out of curiosity and a kind of a half interest about whether this is something that I might like to do, whether I would like to put my hand up and run for an elected position. And I had a real interest always in increasing the number of women at the decision-making tables, but also in, and I will say this because I can, more independence. I really wanted to sort of shake up that two-party thing and have more independence. And one of my, one of my role models that I love looking at is the way Cathy McGowan ran way back when she was the first female independent for the federal arena. And so that inspired me as well. Well, when I did the program, I realised just how much is involved. And one of the things I learned, which was really good for me, is I learned that because I'd moved around a lot and lived in different communities, that how important it is to actually be known in your community and have a really good community relationships built in that community. So for me, it was a not yet, because I had been where I am now, not long enough, not known enough, and have probably spread myself around too much in a lot of different areas. But that was a good learning from me. And it didn't, dampen, it did not at all dampen my interest in the fact that we need more women running and stepping up into these decision-making tables. In fact, it actually made me even more determined to make sure I was supporting others to do that. So since then, we run leadership programs, we have run support circles. I've been mentoring other women to, both pre and post elections, to be the best leaders they possibly can be at these decision-making tables and really drive change, because we know women are really good at driving change and just shaking things up a little bit and doing things differently, which is what's needed. So Licia and I met in 2019 at Palm Cove, where I live, close to where I live. She was up here on holidays and I grabbed her for a coffee and we had a wonderful chat. And so Licia, what I'd like you to do is share with everyone today. It's over to you because I've had enough talking. I'd really like you to share a little bit about yourself and how you came into this role as CEO of Women for Election, and then a little bit about what does Women for Election do. Thank you.
Yeah, well, what a wonderful kind of introduction in terms of remembering you as a somebody we had coffee with, and somebody who attended our courses, and somebody who's so dedicated to this course. So thank you for setting the scene, Jalinda. It's funny the journeys that we're on as individuals. So my journey, unique to me, but often I hear from a lot of other women as well. I had a wonderful career in the financial services sector for a period, and then I guess got increasingly agitated, is probably the best way to put it, about how I was seeing politics being done, not just in Australia, but globally as well. And just, I couldn't feel that there was any alignment of interest between some of the shenanigans, some of the way that people were conducting themselves in their workplace versus how I had to conduct myself in workplace. I felt really, really distant from those who were governing us. And I guess that agitation slowly got to a point where I chose to take a sabbatical from my career for a year. Very privileged ability to be able to do that, supportive partner in order to do that. But what I really wanted to do was work out how I could improve Australia's political landscape. No background in that. I felt that there was a job that didn't exist yet, but that there was an impact there to be made. So I set off on my year of having 100,000 coffees, it felt like, reaching out to current politicians, former politicians, heads of think tanks, policymakers, chiefs of staff, former chiefs of staff. Like, just, I had a whiteboard up at home in my office trying to work out, where's it going wrong? What's happening? Where are we being let down? And the place I got to was that it probably wasn't our systems necessarily that were letting us down, i.e. we had the same system, same Westminster system and so forth in the 1950s, where we seemed to be having very communal-based policy that was benefiting not all, but a lot. But possibly it was the individuals. It was more the individuals that were sitting in politics. So once that earworm got into my ear, this whole idea, well, how do you change the individuals? How do you make sure that those that are running for office, this could be at council, state or federal level, it doesn't matter. How are they motivated to do good for the community? How are they from a broad selection of lived experience? And I came across an organisation called Women for Election, and I attended their first ever training conference, which was held in 2017. And I was on the board a few months later.
As you do.
Well, it fizzed me up adequately to go, okay, I think this is something, this could be, let's lean in to whatever this is. What's your business strategy? We don't have one. Or can I help? Right. What's your, so started on that journey and got intimately involved in setting up future training sessions. And I got to hear a couple of messages over and over again. One of those messages was, you'll never feel ready. You'll never feel ready to run, but run anyway. And then the other message was, timing is everything. And then something very unexpected happened where I lived in my federal electorate of Wentworth, and I was not ready. Oh my God, Jalinda, I was not ready to run even remotely. when my local member, who was Malcolm Turnbull, who happened to be the Prime Minister as well, unexpectedly stepped down, and it forced us into a by-election. And I decided to run. And I decided to run because I'd been exposed to the Women for Election training and that messaging. And my goal was not to get elected. Newsflash, I did not get elected. But what I did do was change the conversation just by running. And the ultimate winner, Karen Phelps, adopted my policy platform in full. And that's a win.
Yeah.
That's a win. So once that dust settled on my own campaign, I realized that a lot of the tropes I'd been fed in the years previously, politics is toxic. You have to be a long-time party member before you can run. You have to, it goes on and on and on and on and on about all the reasons why you shouldn't run.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about this in a few minutes. I think part of that narrative is maintained to keep us out. Once the dust settled, I went back to the board of Women for Election and said, look, I really think we could do something significant with this organisation. I don't think it can be done with a very well-intentioned and passionate volunteer board. I think we need dedicated staff, paid staff, and executive. I would like to do that role. I'd like to be the inaugural CEO. I'll source the funding to pay my wage and to pay other wages. And that was in the end of Q1 in 2019. I became the inaugural CEO.
Yeah.
So how about I pause there for a second?
I love it. I love that story. And actually, when I did it was just after that. So yes.
Yeah. Then I went on my next whole ream of 100,000 coffees, which was now as a CEO. And every time I was in a new state, it was great to meet people like yourself, who had similar values, and we're all, I guess, united. It didn't matter which party you aligned with, but we're all united in terms of sick of yelling at the TV.
Yeah. Exactly.
And how can we make it better?
Yeah. So since then, Women for Election has rolled out a number of these equip programs, which I mentioned before that I did. And in the lead up to elections, different levels, like council level, local government level, state level, federal level, in various states too, like in your state elections. Do you have some idea of how many women you've trained so far in these kind of programs, or, what the outcome's been, the increase of women in some of these other areas, making tables?
Well, look, we do, we do have an idea of how many women we've trained. We do our best to see to follow how many women then end up running and then end up getting elected. Again, I want to say we don't measure ourselves on how many women get elected. Lots of other people like to measure us on that. But the public vote for people at the end of the day. Yeah. So it's up to the public to vote more women in. We like to get measured on how many women we help run. So look, we've trained just under 3,000 women in the last 3 years. We had very much focused on place-based training initially. COVID actually allowed me to scale the organization at a much faster rate than I had anticipated, because everyone moving online meant we were suddenly training people in far north Queensland, on Kangaroo Island, from the Kimberleys, and all these places that we just didn't have the resources to drop into anytime soon. And that online training was obviously resonating, because, then we ended up having, I think it was 43 alumni run in the federal election, for example. And then we've had alumni run in all the elections since that time. And you're right, there's always an election somewhere at some time in this country. So, you know, since then we've had the New South Wales local government elections, the Victorian state elections, South Australian local government elections, WA local government elections. And now we're coming into the, you know, the next cab off the rank, so to speak, is Queensland. So with both local government elections and state elections next year in 2024.
Yeah, it's a big year for Queensland, that's for sure. Yeah.
And also the Torres Strait. Torres Strait goes to election next year.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yep.
I know you've got a couple of slides that perhaps you might like to share with us in relation to this new program. So I'm really excited for you to tell us a little bit more about the fact that this program that you're doing now is rolling out a lot more broadly around Australia, that the government's got behind it and given some great funding towards it, and just, you know, give us an overview of what that looks like and how some of the women on listening into here today, whether they're here or whether they listen later, are able to tap into that. So are you able to take us through that? Maybe just share your screen if you've got a chance to do that now.
Yeah, of course. Let me share now. Can you see that, Jalinda?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. And the others can see it too, yes?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Look, I think, I mean, you opened this up, but our whole mission is to inspire, equip, and thrive. So inspire more women to see themselves as future political leaders, to inspire them to see that the work that they already do in the community, which we all know every woman is doing every day of the year and always has, to be frank, that work and those skills through doing that work are completely transferable to public office. Time and time again, when I travel to different parts of the country and I meet the women in Bathurst, or I meet the women in Mackay, or I meet the women in Port Augusta, they're running the P&Cs, they're running the local business chamber, they're running the drought relief programs or the flood relief programs, or the local Auskick or netball competitions. Like, it goes on and on and on and on and on. And those skills are 9/10 of what a good political representative does. They just are. And we help with the 1/10, to be frank. So inspire more women to see that the skills they already have are transferable to public office, where not only do they no longer have to be in a volunteer capacity anymore, it can be paid, but they can have a greater impact as well. And so we can give the skills to equip them on the knowledge on how to run, or how to be part of a team to help another woman run. But then how do we sustain them in public office once they're there as well? So, it's hard enough to get to win these positions in the first place. How do we curb the attrition that can often happen with women leaving politics as well? Or make sure that there's that healthy pipeline of women behind them who are ready to take those roles as well. And this is something that it comes from the Global Institute for Women's Leadership, which is originated by Julia Gillard in King's College in London, post her experience of being a female leader in politics. And now actually that's expanded to be in ANU in Canberra as well. But they produced a report in 2021 specifically on looking at women in politics globally and the outcomes that happen when you have gender parity in our council chambers or our state or federal parliaments. And this quote just, it pierced me that when women are able to exercise political leadership in a manner that's authentic to them, there are not just gains for women and girls. Too often it's you get more women so you can get better outcomes for women and girls. Well, yes, but there are also better outcomes for the whole of society as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's so important, and often I think it gets lost, but that women MPs and councillors, they take more meetings with their constituents. They're more visible in their electorates than their male counterparts. They prosecute the case for those constituent meetings that they've had. They take those back to the caucus. They take those back to the chamber. At a greater rate. This is empirical data that's been done by this institute, and that the Canberra-based institute are now following our program for the next 4 years, because we don't have this data in Australia, and we want to make sure that we do going forward, because that's how you decrease barriers for future women, and it's how you inform systems change to make sure that it's easier for future women to get elected as well.
Yeah.
And this is, this is where the country sits at the moment, depending on whether you're looking at our federal level, our state and territory level, or our council level. So women are underrepresented at every level. Look, and those that's top line numbers across that. So 37% of our state and territory assemblies are held by women. Now, that's over 50%, for example, in the ACT. But in Queensland, it's sitting below 37%.
Yeah.
So in the council side at 38%, there are still male-only councils across the country. Like that agitates me. And it's fair to say that the whole of community is not getting represented as well as it could be, and that's what we want to address.
Yeah, that's absolutely the case in Queensland. There are a couple of councils that are all male. And there's, last time when I looked, I haven't looked, I think it would be since the last election, so yes. And there's a couple of councils with just one female. So like 7, 8, 9, I think one of the councils had 11 in their divisions, one female.
Yeah, and that's such an important point, because that is how you go backwards within one election cycle. So in the last New South Wales local government election, there were 4 male-only councils, and thanks to funding we received from the New South Wales government, where we could really focus on inspiring and equipping and thriving, we lifted New South Wales from the worst state in the country in terms of female representation on council, unbelievable, to the 3rd best. And there's no male-only councils. However, there are way too many, just like in Queensland, just like in Victoria and other states. There are way too many councils that have only one woman on it. And that's only one election cycle away from going backwards, which again is why the work that we're doing, and the work that other groups do as well, to ensure that we have a healthy pipeline of women who are looking to engage in politics at any point in time is so important. We're pushing that ute up the hill, and you need to make sure you're putting that wedge behind that wheel. Otherwise it goes backwards, and it goes back super quick.
Yeah, definitely. Certainly in a cycle, I've actually seen that somewhere they've had, maybe 40% women, and then election happens, a particular male team runs, with a patriarchal kind of, theme to it. And all of a sudden, the next cycle, all the women are out bar one or something. And you've got, so it can go backwards or, change very quickly.
Very quickly. It's like a negative feedback loop. So, we're short-circuiting that to move it into a positive feedback loop instead. So this is referring to our new program. Is this a good time to talk about that?
Yeah, let's get into that.
Yeah, well, just for those of you on the call and those of you watching the recording, so the federal government late last year put out a tender looking for organisations to submit, to make a submission for a grant that was on offer, basically to encourage, in a non-partisan format, more women across the country to run for public office. So strictly non-partisan, focusing on all tiers of government and focusing on the full geography of the country, but also making sure that we were focusing on lifting what I'm going to call politically underrepresented communities of women as well. So, you know, whether that be women of color or disabled women or women from the queer community. So we submitted for that tender, and very happy to report that we won that tender as well. Super exciting. It's kept me very busy over the last 6 months. But we're finally at rollout stage. So really over the next 4 years, Women for Election are running place-based and online training events with a real emphasis on place-based training events. So noting that for those underrepresented communities of women, frequently you have to go to where the women are at. So, and you need to supplement that with online training for accessibility reasons and a whole host of different reasons. But if you look at a map of Australia and look at where there's good female representation at all tiers of government, it's very obvious that regional and remote Australia is incredibly underrepresented when it comes to female representation. That's where the male-only councils are, and that's where there's only ever been male state and federal MPs as well. So we have funding to push into regional and remote Australia to make sure that we're going to where the women are at, the women who are running the communities.
Yes.
Like before. So place-based training that kicks off in November in across Queensland, online training. And then we're also developing right now, and the first version of it will be available in November, a digital resource called Campaign in Your Pocket. And that is really aimed, again, it's a free resource. It's a resource to decrease barriers to entry for women who might like to learn more about how they would run for office, how they might be a campaign team, and to build a community of women who might like to source different volunteer positions with different campaigns at different points as well. So a supportive environment where you can get information regardless of whether you're running in Tassie or the NT about specific things that you need to know about those jurisdictions as well.
Oh, okay. So the actual platform that you're doing actually looks at where the person's located and what are the rules or what are the things you need to know about it if you're running in regional Queensland, for instance, as opposed to running in Northern Territory. Yeah.
You're right. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Have a drink. Yeah, it's really, really interesting to see the actual program roll out, and the fact that, you know, there was a decent amount of funding sitting behind this to allow this to happen over a 4-year period, so that it is actually in line with, you know, when Queensland, for instance, which is the first one off the rank, is actually, you know, running their local government elections in March and their state government elections, I think it's October next year. So then it can roll out in line with that. And then I'm assuming the next ones, for whether it's New South Wales or wherever it is, will be wherever the next elections are. Licia, yeah, she's back.
Beautifully done and tap danced, Jalinda. I don't know. I just had a bit of a coughing fit. I'm sorry, everybody.
No, good.
Let's go through
that. Hear
it. I put myself on mute. Yes, you're right. So, like I said, we're following the next 4 years. There's an election everywhere.
Wow.
And so we're starting on a roadshow. It's basically a national roadshow. And these events listed here are our place-based events. So 6 events in WA, 5 events in the Northern Territory, and so on and so forth. And then there's online events that are happening over the top of that as well. But this is just our place-based events listed at the moment. And here's the date specific to Queensland. And in fact, Jalinda, not that we've promoted this yet, but we have doubled down in terms of our dedication to finding, to assisting First Nations women to run. So we're running an event in the Torres Strait on the 30th of November as well.
Great.
Yep.
Really good. Yeah.
Yep.
I know two in Cairns, haven't you? You've got it's kicking off in it looks like it's kicking off in Mackay, is it? 14th in Mackay.
Mackay's the first one. We have two events in Cairns because we work with our sister organisation, Politics in Colour.
Mm-hmm.
That's run by women of colour, and the CEO is Kat Henaway. She's a Torres Strait Islander woman, and her event is on the 16th of November. So specifically contextualized training to acknowledge that additional support is needed for women of color when they run. So, whether you have cultural diversity or First Nations background, we really encourage those women to attend the 16th of November in Cairns, and they are very welcome to also attend the 17th of November as well. But the first forum is run as a, culturally appropriate and safe space. And there's the other dates. And then down to Brizzy in November 23rd, and then across to Barkey on the 27th, and then the Torres Strait on the 30th. So I might my sharing there.
Actually, as a Queenslander, you just did very well by calling Buckhalden Barkey. Excellent.
I think that's you. I think I learned that from you.
You probably did. I used to live there many years ago. But Buckhalden, it's really interesting. I love to see that you're going that far west, because there's a number of councils. And for those who don't know where Buckhalden is, it's right on the crossroads. So like you can go 4 different directions. There's a number of councils, north, south, east and west. And there's smaller type councils, but we found one of the things back in 2021 that I was involved in was to run some leadership development for women councillors that were already elected after the last election. And we found the Western Council women were just like sponges. They wanted to actually know as much as they possibly could, because they didn't get the chance often to go when something was just on in Brisbane. So I'm so pleased to see you going out to the centre area and doing it.
Oh, well, thank you. We were trying desperately to get something up in Mount Isa as well. It didn't happen on this occasion, but the Tree of Democracy in Barkey there, and but Jalinda, it's interesting. Barkey's the event probably that we have the lowest registrations for at the moment. So lots of fire disruption and all sorts of things through a lot of those areas, though. So want to acknowledge that.
and I know we can do this offline, but I was thinking the other day I need to contact a few of my people out there as well, that just to make sure they are aware of that. But yes, it does. In the country, whether you can actually travel, and it's very common to travel 2 hours, 3 hours to get to there, like from your different areas. It really depends a lot on what's going on in your area. Fires, floods, roads. Yes.
Yep. Totally understand. And we're going to run that, whether that ends up being 5 women or 12, because the women who need to be there are the women who are in the room. Yes. So that's our belief.
Okay, all right. Just a little bit about, you said you got this funding from the government. Obviously, Women for Election are heading that up, but you've got a number of other agencies that are helping you with this. It's kind of like a consortium, isn't it?
Yeah, you were specifically asked to form a consortium. Well, no, you were much more likely to have success with your tender if you formed a consortium. So we have 4 consortium partners, all with very different vital roles depending on their level of expertise. So we have our training partner, Ruth McGowan Proprietary Limited. We have ALGWA, which is the Australian Local Government Women's Association. Mm-hmm. So they have a mentoring program that they're adapting for this particular program. So they're our mentoring partner. Anyone who comes to our training, be it face-to-face or online, has the ability to, they can opt in to receive a political mentor. Very important part of the journey. We have a group called Quantum Impact Group, who are not only helping us with our digital resource Campaign in Your Pocket, but are also an important content partner for us as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have ANU, Global Institute for Women's Leadership, who are our academic partner, who are really following the efficacy of this program for the next 4 years. Collecting that data, I'm sick of quoting international research here. Yes. What we need to understand is what are the barriers that are preventing women for running for office, getting elected for office. How do those barriers change depending on whether they're a woman of color or a woman from regional Australia, or a dual citizen, or that, you know, have don't have access to adequate funding to run. So we can inform systems change at the end of that.
Yeah. Fix those barriers, but you need to be precise about what are the barriers. You're so right about the data we often get in the reports that are flashed around. I mean, I'm an avid LinkedIn follower, and I read a lot of reports in relation to gender equality, also the work that we do with Lean In Global. And we're constantly getting bombarded with, here's the latest, you know, report on gender equality, but it's all American stats, you know. So I mean, we do follow the great work that the Workforce Gender Equality Agency does, and they obviously do some data around, you know, pay gaps and those kind of things, and women's representation in CEO roles and that kind of thing. But yeah, specifically to this and what's stopping women running, and also I'd like to think what also makes it difficult for them to stay in those positions too, because sometimes sustaining is another issue. As we said before, it can flip very quickly from 4 or 5 women one election period to the next time one.
So you can't manage what you don't measure. So it, you know, it's pretty simple that way. And you know, we believe, we call them the 5 C's. We've just anecdotally worked out what the 5 barriers are. You know, it's cash, it's caring responsibilities, it's candidate selection, so particular when we're talking about pre-selection, it's culture, again, political culture that can be off-putting, and also the big C, confidence. So, but that's exactly what our training addresses, or each of those components in different ways. But there's systemic barriers as well that we can address. So yes, but so very ambitious what we're hoping to achieve, but also what we're hoping to measure is ambitious, but why not? Let's be ambitious.
Yeah. And as you say, like, you don't know until you give this a go and you work out what worked, what didn't work, and keep refining it. So you've got to start somewhere. And you said right at the start, even when women don't feel they're ready to actually run, you know, actually do something and tweak it as you go, which I think is great. I think the ladies on the program here today, on this masterclass interview, and also in the recording later on, might perhaps want to know a little bit more about when they come along to it's a full day program, isn't it? The face-to-face ones, yes.
Face-to-face, yeah. They're typically 9 to 3:30.
Okay. And what you know, is there a couple of dot points of what they can expect to get? Like, it's actually your equipped program ramped up, if you like, powered up, or what do you call it?
We're calling it the power module.
Power edition or power module, yes.
Yep.
So what things specifically will they get out of that?
Yeah, look, I think there is information on our website, and there's a kind of FAQ section, but let's go through some of the bits now. Like it's that whole pragmatic sense of what you need to run to get elected, knowing that at the moment that's kept very opaque. And we know from our international research that the more opaque things are kept, the less likely particularly women are to step into them. So if we make it transparent, then we kind of break it down into a to-do list in our training. So for example, what's the time commitment if I'm going to run for office? What do I need to do with my job, if anything? How much does it cost to run? How would I present in front of the media? How does it change if I run for a major party or a minor party or an independent? How does it change if it's for a federal seat, a state seat, or a local seat? How does it scale up or down? So it's kind of the bit of the A to Z of how you'd run. And our programs are attended by those who are fizzed up to run. You know, they're red hot. They're running in they're running in 12 weeks time, and they're ready to go. And then at the other end, it's for women who sometimes they say, I don't even know why I'm here. I don't know why I'm here. I know that I'm curious. I know that I'm sick of yelling at the TV. And I know that I want to be a more informed voter. And then everyone in between. Some who might want to help another woman on her campaign and just want to know, what are the skills needed on a campaign team? How do my skills slot in? Because I guarantee they always will. But we don't know. Well, we don't know this information.
Yeah. I really like the fact you've got a lot of that, Q&A stuff and the information on that on your website. In the invitations we sent out to this, I also put in the Queensland ones because they're the ones coming up at the moment. So we put in the Queensland ones for November in the little tiles. And for those that are listening in, if you click on those tiles, it takes you straight to the registration link for those ones. So the actual program that they're coming to is free because it's funded. It's fully funded by the federal government. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's important barrier.
Yeah.
Drop straight down.
You said that was your first C. Often it's cost. Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, excellent. I'm just wondering, we're looking at the time at the moment, it's 1:45. Online here, do we have anyone that has any questions? I know I've got your cameras off at the moment, but if you have a question, you might like to actually use the little hands up thing at the bottom, or otherwise say you've got a question in the chat. I am watching the chat box. Or just come off mute and start talking, because there's only a few of us on here at the moment. And also for those in the recording, if you've got further questions, maybe go and have a look at the Q&A section section on the website. Do we have any questions at the moment?
Happy to take questions or comments. Oh, I think I see a couple of people have taken themselves off mute.
Joe, is Joe off mute?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Joe, are you booked to come to, I know you're sitting in Cairns at the moment. Are you booked to come along out of curiosity for the Cairns event?
I'm booked for Brisbane.
Oh, you're booked for Brisbane? Excellent.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, I'm away for the Cairns one.
Oh,
Okay.
I'll be there. Look forward to meeting you, Joe.
In Brizzy?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, look forward to seeing you there.
Awesome.
Bring a friend.
Yes, I'll find someone in Brisbane.
We often find that people like to bring a friend, like politics. We're funny in Australia, the way we think about politics. Culturally, it can be quite scary, and we wish that it wasn't, and we're dedicated to making sure that it's not. But we find a lot of people often bring a friend.
Yeah, a couple of the girls are going to the Cairns one.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Thanks, Joe.
Okay.
Now it's also, when you said bring a friend, I might just, I notice on all of your advertising, Licia, it is, specific as part of your contract with government, it's specific for women. So as you're rolling out these things, it is women only at these events. Because as I mentioned to you before, and some of you on here may know, my partner Gary is actually, I said to him, do you want to wear a skirt and see if you can get in? Because he's actually helping to run a campaign for one of the mayoral candidates here, the lovely Amy Eden, for Cairns local councils that's coming up, elections that's coming up. So, but I think what my point on that is, you don't have to necessarily want to run to actually come to these things. If you're a support person, if you've got half a dozen ladies that are in your team that are supporting you and want to know more about this, or, is there a, like, I suppose at the moment you're not booked out, but is there a cutoff as to how many you can let in the room, Licia?
We tend to find, no, we don't take more than 25 typically, because there are some workshop components that we do. But for now and then, yes, we let it run up and over. But back to that pipeline conversation, somebody who's curious now might run in 10 years' time. But the time to gather the information is now, because if some sudden disruption happens in your seat, then your chance of either influencing the outcome or getting elected is massively amplified. And you don't want to miss that window. So gather the information now. You might want to run in 10 years' time. Something happens in 4 years' time. You want to have some base knowledge. So, or you want to encourage your sister to do it, or your daughter to do it, and things like that. We all know those people who are out in community who would just be an amazing political representative and are already doing a large part of the job.
Yes, yeah. And that's what we see too in the Lean In. They were originally, we now call them Elevate Her, with our Elevate Her Australia banner. The circles, the peer circles that we ran, you could spot them. You have like 8 to 12 women around the table, and you could just see like 3 or 4 of them just oozed, this kind of role. That's where they were heading. They may not have been aware of it at the time, but you could just see it. And it's so good to be able to promote them both to your programs, and also things like Pathways to Politics,
yep,
and a couple of other programs that we're aware of. Wherever possible, when we find these are happening for our members, we like to say, hey, are you aware of this? Have you thought of this? Because we all need to promote to have more women at decision-making tables for as, in as much capacity as we possibly can. So I think you can tell I'm excited about this. I absolutely am. I really wanted to see this rolling out more broadly. And you started doing them really well, and they were very popular, the Equip programs online during COVID. And I think, what a great idea. You ran with the ball with the fact we all had to be online anyway. That's great. But to be able to then tweak it further, broaden it out further, and then let's take this around on an Australian roadshow in line with when the next elections are in each area, I think that's brilliant.
Thank you. Well, I think we rely on people getting the word out, so if everyone that's listening to this can go onto our website, sign up for our newsletter, know that we're going to be rolling out events across, obviously Queensland in November, but next year we'll be rolling out events in the NT, New South Wales, Victoria, ACT, and it looks like Tassie. It looks like Tassie's going to bring their elections early. It's like peak election 2024. And so we need you to share it with the network, your friends you might have in Tassie, or friends you might have in Vic or NT, because there's still too many people that don't know that we exist. And the worst outcome for me is that we end up running an event in Darwin or Launceston, and people find out about it the day after. Like, so yeah, as much as we can mitigate that, we're grateful for people sharing our work. Like you, Jalinda.
Oh, thank you. Well, we'll Elevate Her Australia. Certainly we're going to we tweak this. We always edit our recordings of this and then send that out to our members, but I'd like to send it out more broadly. And on our LinkedIn page, it isn't just members. We have quite a following of about 1,400 people on there that aren't necessarily all members. And it's good to also, you know, spread it widely that way. So I encourage everyone else who's listening to this, if you think you know someone or you listen to this and you want to spread it more broadly, certainly do that. So we've got as many people as possible knowing about this opportunity that won't come along each time. I don't want to get too political, but we've got a federal government at the moment that's a lot more into the national gender equality kind of strategies and things. They're open to looking at what else we can do to have more women involved. And I like the fact, Licia, you said that your program particularly, and they've funded this program, is bipartisan. And so it's a great opportunity for anyone with any political aspirations to absolutely grab this opportunity, because this is like 4-year funding, Licia?
Yep, 4 years from this point, yeah. And
so imagine not doing this and then going, oh, I should have done that 4 years ago, and it's no longer happening.
No longer happening or no longer funded.
No longer funded, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, look, we've helped women run and get elected for the ALP, for the Libs, for the Greens, for the Nats, Animal Justice Party, like lots of other, Reason Party, as independents. Like, it's not our job to tell somebody how to run. They will come to our events, if not a party member, then certainly with some sort of political alignment. It is our job to make what is currently an opaque process more transparent, so that when they run, they can have a greater likelihood of success. That is our role.
Right. And I love that you've got mentoring attached to it, because that's so important. I do know some others who have run. I mentioned Amy Eden before up here, like I'm in Cairns, so I know she's running for mayor, but, you know, she's kind of reached out to other people, other women who have been mayors before and stuff, and got specific mentoring. That kind of mentoring is really important, and where we've got the access to that, grab it, you know, with both arms, I say. So excellent. I wonder if we've got no further questions, just I'll pause for a moment. If there's no further questions, Licia, I wonder if you'll just finish off for us with maybe sharing a little story of someone who maybe came to your programs, or someone you knew that kind of went, nah, you know, never thought I'd do this, never thought I could actually run, actually ran, won, and is doing wonderful things. I've got some examples. Names?
I've got lots of examples. Oh, I know, because she's got a place in my heart, and I actually asked her to do one of our monthly In Conversation interviews recently, where all of our alumni get to hear from a current or retired politician about their journey into politics and the amazing impact that they're creating, because all we ever hear is the clickbait stories about politics every time. That's all we hear. We never hear about the amazing, wonderful stories. So we want to help balance that out a little bit. So her name is Fran Day, and she lives in Lockhart, which is on the regional remote border in New South Wales. And she got in touch with me. She said, oh, I just missed out on the Bathurst one. I'm going to have to travel to Albury. Is that okay? I think Fran would be in her early 60s. Don't know exactly, but what I do know is that she had been a community volunteer for
probably all of life.
40 years.
Yep.
And her husband had been on council multiple terms. And despite her husband being on council and her being so involved in that, her running herself just had not even really occurred to her. I find it fascinating, but she was the quietest and the most timid, I'd say, in that Albury workshop, and probably the one that I would have pegged least likely to run. And blow me down, she did run, She
And
got
what?
elected, her first time ever. So she's on her first term on council right now. She's already achieved amazing things for her community. My plan, I suspect she's not going anywhere. So she's, so she's got some long-term strategic plans for the region to make sure that it's thriving and is attractive for other people to move to make sure that it's got longevity as well. So Fran comes to mind.
I love that story. Absolutely love that story for a number of reasons. One, that her husband was actually doing this, or her partner was doing this for many years. How many times do you see that guys do some of these things really well because of the background, because of the women that are supporting them, the women that are out there doing a lot of the community stuff? I'm not saying that's her case, but you often see it, but you don't see them taking the lead roles. They're not the ones sitting at the table, but they might be the ones constantly influencing from behind the scenes.
Yeah, and I think particularly in regional and remote Australia, I wasn't going to use the P word, but I'll use it now. The patriarchy is still quite strong out in a lot of those regions, which means they're a little bit more locked in about what the roles are. And we're breaking down, every time we get to those areas, we're breaking down those roles, saying this is a role for you. We want you in that chamber. We don't just want you as part of the community in a volunteering capacity. And as soon as I tell them this phrase, which is an earworm, never left my mind since, which is the patriarchy can only exist on the free labor of women. And
that's great. So that's a great way to finish.
Exactly.
You may have balked a little bit at using the P word, but obviously here for Elevate Her Australia, we are very much about making sure that we get that balance. It is a gender equality movement, if you like, or organisation. So we're not afraid of that P word and a couple of other words that pop up. But it's been an absolute pleasure to have you with us today and to talk us through that in a nice, relaxed way, so the women listening to this can actually get to see that maybe this is something that they would like to go along to and find a bit more about, and maybe they could run, and maybe they will. And absolutely that they can, because that confidence stuff is really important. So links will be sent with this recording. Links are already on the invitation for those that have popped on today. And also, Licia, your website is Women for Election. Yes.
Yeah. So the website is wfe.org.au.
Okay, it's nice and simple. It's a beautiful website. Go in and check it out. And thank you so much for spending the time with us today and for letting us know. And we will continue to promote these events, particularly in Queensland. And then when the next ones roll out as well in New South Wales, because obviously as Elevate Her Australia, we support all women in Australia to step up into these roles and to sit at decision-making tables. So thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you to
everyone for popping on.
I really appreciate it.
Okay. And I'll see you at one of the events, or maybe more. Okay. Bye.